All right, now we're going to discuss variable manufacturing overhead rate and efficiency variances. It will seem like you're learning the same thing again because it is the same process. So here we go with our friends at Glacier Peak Outfitters. They use direct labor hours as the allocation base for their predetermined overhead rates. And they have the following standards: 1.2 standard direct labor hours per parka at $4 an hour. And then they actually worked 2,500 hours to make the 2,000 parkas. And actual variable overhead was 10,500. We're going to set it up with our same wonderful 3-column approach: actual quantity times actual price, actual quantity times standard price, standard quantity allowed for actual production times standard price. The 1.2 standard is going to be part of my squat, and the $4 is my rate, my standard price for variable overhead. Last month we actually worked 2,500 hours. We're using labor hours because that's the driver for overhead according to the problem. That's my actual quantity. To make 2,000 parkas, so that 2,000 is my final product, which is what we use to calculate our squat. Remember, squat is the standard quantity allowed for actual production. And then what's left? Well, it looks like some math. So it tells us that the total variable overhead is 10,500. So using that 10,500, I can divide that by the 2,500 hours to figure out my actual variable overhead rate, which was 420. 2,500 times 4 in the middle is going to get me, what do you think, 10 grand maybe? And then doing out our squat, we're going to get 2,400 times 4. It's going to give me 9,600. So then we compare column 1 and column 2. That's going to get us our rate variance for variable overhead. That's going to be a $500 variance, and that's unfavorable. Why? Because I actually spent 10.5. The budget was 10. Or if you prefer, I spent 420. I should have only spent 4. Whoopsies. So either way, you slice it or dice it, it's an unfavorable rate variance. On our efficiency side, you compare 10 to 9,600, you're going to get a 400 variance. And if actual is 10 and budget is 9,600, you have another unfavorable variance. So spending 2,500 hours when you were only allowed to spend 2,400 means you have another unfavorable variance. Spending more, bad. Add them together. 500 plus 400 is 900 because they're in the same direction. We just add them, and it's an overall unfavorable variance. And the difference between 10.5 and 9.6 rather is indeed $900. And spending 10.5 when the budget is 9,600 is shitty. So that's why it's an unfavorable variance. So there you have it. Nice and pretty, done. Here it is all typed up for you if you can't read my writing. But you got your rate and efficiency variance, just like we did for direct materials and for direct labor. It's the same exact process. Remember to get the standard quantity allowed for actual production, or as I call it, the squat. We are going to take the standard allowed per unit times the actual production of final product. That's the only time the final product comes into play. All the other AQs, or in this case AHs, actual hours, are the hours of the driver for variable overhead, not the actual final product quantity. And then remember to get our actual rate. If we're not given it, we can get it by taking our total divided by the actual hours. Algebraically, you're going to get the exact same answer if you do it out algebraically, so go for the glory if you like that method, but either way, you arrive in the same place. I personally, again, like that 3-column approach, so that's why I've used it throughout. Oh my goodness, we're back at Zippy. Why don't you take a nice little moment, pause up that screen, do it out, because I know you think you can do it. Just watch Baruby or fast forward. You think you got it all under control, but take a moment and try it. Make sure you can do it. Did you listen? Did you pause it? Well, we'll find out on exam day. So actual quantity times actual price, actual quantity times standard price, and then SQUAP times standard price are our three columns. It tells us that to make a zippy, it takes 1.5 standard hours. So that's going to be part of my SQUAP at $3 per direct labor hour. That's my standard price or rate. Last week, we spent 1,550 hours. So that's my actual quantity to make 1,000 zippies. So that's what I used to get my SQUAP. And then we spent 5,115. So that's the actual amount that was paid for variable overhead. And now all we have to do is math. So we can get our actual variable overhead rate by taking 5,115 divided by 1,550, and we get an actual rate of 330. We do a little math in the middle. 1,550 times 3 gets us 4,650. And then we got to get our SQUAP, which is 1,500, and we multiply that by 3. Whoopsies. And we get 4,500. I did that in my head, so I hope it's not wrong. Now we take our difference. I don't know what just happened there. And this will get me my rate variance. 5,115 minus 4,650 is 465. I spent 5,115. The budget was 4,650. Bad. So unfavorable. The rate was 330. Again, higher than budget of 3. Also bad. Supporting unfavorable. Then comparing column 2 and 3, I end up with 150 as my difference. And that's for my efficiency variance. And is it favorable or unfavorable? It looks like it's unfavorable again because I spent 4,650. I was allowed to spend 4,500. 1,550 was the hours used. I was allowed 1,500. Either way you slice it or dice it, it is an unfavorable variance. Add them together, I'm out of space. So you get 465 plus 150. You get a 615 overall variance, unfavorable, which is the difference between column 1 and column 3. This time I do think we might need the typing, which will be shown in a little bit. If you can't read it, it's kind of hard to read the red on that blue. But hopefully you followed along. And hopefully you already had all these answers done. You didn't need me. You got this. So now with that information, we can answer Quick Check 3A. What was the rate variance? It was 465 unfavorable, and the algebraic method is given, which arrives at the same answer we got with the 3-column approach. The efficiency variance was 150 unfavorable. And here's the typed version of the 3-column approach, which again is my preference. But whatever works for you is all that really matters.